Hello, math students. This video is aimed at giving you a quick overview of adding and subtracting fractions, like just the basics. I know it might have been a while or you just need to brush up on this skill, so if that is you, here you go. The first thing to remember when you're adding or subtracting fractions is you must have common denominators. So what that means is if you come across an addition or subtraction problem, denominators. If you come across an addition or subtraction problem, let's take one like 2/3 minus 1/4. So you can't take a fourth away from a third. Like envision, I always say envision a pizza. If you cut a pizza into thirds, right? It's not perfect, but you get the picture. And then if you cut a pizza into fourths. So a third-sized slice is a little bit bigger than a quarter-sized slice, a fourth-sized slice. You can't take a fourth from a third. And if we were adding here, let's change this to an addition problem, you can't add thirds and a fourth. It doesn't work. They're different sized things. So when you add or subtract fractions, you have to make sure that the denominator, which tells us how big or small a piece of a fraction is, you need to make them the same size so that when I'm adding or subtracting things, they're all on common ground. So when you've got thirds and fourths, your first step is asking yourself, well, what can I turn both of those into? And if you think back to doing least common multiple, that's finding something that's common between two numbers that they can both turn into. Thirds, 3 for example, and 4 have a common multiple. The LCM is 12, which means thirds can turn into 12 and fourths can turn into 12. If you multiply 3 times 4, it equals 12. And if you multiply 4 times 3, it equals 12. So I can change both of these fractions. So that's what I'm going to do for step 1. I'm going to multiply 2/3. I'll do this over here. 2/3. And I'm going to multiply both the numerator, the number on top, and the denominator, the number on the bottom, by 4. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 4 is 12. So I'm turning 2/3 into 8/12. And I'm going to do the same thing for 1/4. 1/4 times what is going to give me 12ths? All times 3. 4 times 3 is 12. And whatever I multiply the denominator by, I also multiply the numerator by, so that I still have a fraction that's equivalent to 1/4. 3 out of 12 is the same as 1 out of 4. It's just written with the denominator being smaller pieces out of 12ths. All right, so step 1 is complete. We now have common denominators. We've turned 2/3 into 8/12 and 1/4 into 3/12. Now, the rest of this is easy. I'll call it step 2, but really it's just the rest of the process. After you've got common denominators, we're going to add the numerators, or if you're subtracting, you would subtract the numbers on top, and you're going to keep the denominator. Ultimately, if I'm adding 8/12 and 3/12, I should still have an answer that equals something twelfths, like how many total twelfths do I have? So the denominator is going to stay the same. You're not adding or subtracting those. The only thing you're adding is the pieces, the amounts that are on top, the numerators. 8/12 plus 3/12. 8 plus 3 is 11. So 11/12. And then I'll add a little extra here, little star. Always simplify. So if it's possible, simplify the fraction. In this case, 11/12, you can't simplify it. But if you had something like, we'll talk about simplifying real quick. Let's say you had 9/12. Well, both of these, the numerator and denominator, can be divided by 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. So if it's possible, simplify, reduce this fraction down as much as you can. In this case, 3/4, you can't simplify any further, so that would be your best possible answer. The other thing with simplifying is if your final answer is an improper fraction. Improper means the top number, the numerator, is bigger than the denominator. So let's say you had, let's just flip this around, 12/9 instead of 9/12. This is an improper fraction. Don't leave this as 12/9. Simplify it, reduce it. And the way that you should do that is first turn this into a mixed number. To turn this into a mixed number, how many times can 9 go into 12? 1. So there's one whole here, plus there's 3 left over. 9 can go into 12 one time, but there's going to be 3 left over. 3/9 left over. So 12/9 can be rewritten as 1 and 3/9. These two things mean the same thing. We're just on our way to simplifying it. And we can simplify even a bit further because 3 and 9 can both be divided by 3, right? Both of those numbers share a common factor of 3. So this can even further be reduced to 1 and 1/3. And that would be your best possible answer. So when I say you should always simplify, if it's a normal common fraction, just ask yourself, can the numerator and denominator be divided by the same thing? In this case, 3/4. It would be the best answer. And then if you have an improper fraction, you first off want to make sure that you get it into a mixed number, and then, if possible, reduce that mixed number down to its most simplified version. I hope this was a little bit helpful. It should at least give you a model of something to follow for each of the steps. So finding a common denominator, adding or subtracting, and then simplifying where possible. If you have further questions, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, good luck!